Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you, and it feels great to be here again. For last few weeks now, we have been discussing specific systems in India, like the education system and the banking system, while keeping the big picture of governance, administration, and the impact it has on Indian population. Now, today's topic is a sensitive one because the entire nation is affected by the consequence of this system. It is basic to the society's well-being, and if we observe today, it is one of the most serious issue in the country. The issue is so large that there is no one solution to fix it. We are trying our best to bring some clarity today on the issue of corporatization of healthcare in India. It has introduced significant challenges that impact various facets of the medical system, like doctor-patient relationship, which is at an all-time low. Healthcare cost, it is all-time high and unaffordable. Medical autonomy for the doctors, that has degraded, making doctors sort of corporate slaves. The viability of small hospitals, the nursing homes, is poor, and probably all of them might come to an end. Ethical practices are getting challenged, both legally and conceptually. Employment security for the doctors, especially the young ones, is unfortunately like any other job market. Medical education is getting tough and very expensive, and the perception of healthcare as a service is lost. Overall, if you see, the public health focus in India is now up for sale. So that is the summary of what we are going to talk about, but with the main points that I wanted to highlight was the most harsh one, the basic erosion of doctor-patient trust. Not so long ago, there was a concept of family doctor found in all households, and they were trusted even for non-medical issues just because they were intimately and deeply involved with the family's well-being. There were commercial interests, of course, but the priority of finance was low as it was more of a relationship based. There was a trust there. The position of a family doctor was same as a respected senior member of the family. Today, all this has drastically changed for the worse. The Indian medical system has entered into an irreversible phase of corporatization. As a consequence, there is an increasing emphasis on revenue generation within corporate hospitals. And this has led to practices such as unnecessary tests, procedures, and extended hospitalizations, and all under the guise of protocols and policies. Doctors are often pressured to meet financial targets, which can compromise the quality of patient care. And this environment fosters patient perception of exploitation, and in many cases leading to an unfortunate decline in trust towards healthcare professionals. There has been various studies, and those studies have noted an erosion of trust in doctor-patient relationship in India. And this drop in doctor-patient relationship has been the contributing factor to the rise of aggression and violence against doctors. A survey by Medical Association revealed that up to 75% of the doctors in India at some point in time has faced a form of aggression or violence in their workplace. And the aggression by the patients and relatives towards the doctor and medical staff is not just a consequence of this broken relationship, but is also factored by the rising cost of treatment. So we come to the related issue of the cost. Now these corporate hospitals, they are profit driven, and these models of profit have resulted in inflated medical bills and expensive treatments. My rough calculation tells me that for an upper middle class hospital, it is about rupees 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh per day for an inpatient hospitalization. And let's say an unadjusted cost per outpatient visit in a private hospital is about 1200 to 2000 rupees compared to 500 rupees for a tertiary care facility, and it is just 150 to 200 rupees in a district hospital, or maybe less. So this disparity makes essential treatments unaffordable for lower and middle income population, and that is exacerbating healthcare inequality. One of the reasons is that doctors in corporate hospitals are often restricted from prescribing certain generic drugs because hospitals have exclusive tie-ups with pharmaceutical companies. All hospitals have a medical shop in their premise. A 2020 investigative report by the Hindu newspaper found that the doctors at major corporate hospitals were required to prescribe only specific branded medicines, even when equally effective and more affordable generic alternatives were available. Similarly, there is a publishing by the Brookings Institution, and that has also highlighted the prevalence of branded medicines being prescribed in the tertiary care hospitals. Why is this happening? Because there is a loss of medical autonomy for doctors working for these corporate hospitals. If you see the corporate hospital settings, doctors often function as employees with limited decision power. Now, they may be doctors, but they are restricted. They are required to adhere to hospital management protocols, which only prioritizes profitability. And this has restricted their ability to provide personalized care. The implementation of corporate-style management, performance targets, and standardized treatment protocols, it further diminished the professional autonomy that we are talking about. It may be ranging from small restriction to highly restricted environment. But then there have been cases like in 2019, a senior cardiologist in Delhi resigned from a reputed corporate hospital, citing pressure from management to increase the number of angioplasties performed. And he claimed that he was discouraged from recommending lifestyle changes or medication as first line of treatment and was instead pushed to perform stent placements, which are far more profitable for the hospital. Similarly, gynecologist in Mumbai was reported she was reprimanded by a hospital management for not convincing enough patients to opt for cesarean sections instead of normal deliveries. Now, C-sections are more lucrative for hospitals because they involve higher charges and shorter hospital stays, and that allows the hospital for more patient turnovers. Another Lancet study, 2018, found that nearly 50% of the childbirths in private hospitals in India were through C-sections, compared to around 15% in government hospitals. And this is only indicating a trend driven by financial incentives than medical necessity. There was a documentary, A Million Cuts, India's C-section Epidemic, and that was by Undercover Asia, and it reported that the cesarean section rate in India's private hospital is about 47.4%, which is significantly higher than the 15% threshold as recommended by World Health Organization. Now, there may be medical disputes as to C-sections versus normal, but the statistics and the finances speak for themselves. All these trends are also moving towards the medical malpractice and the unethical practices. The research indicates an alarming annual incidence of 5.2 million cases related to medical malpractice across various healthcare settings in India. Practices such as cut practices, where doctors receive commissions for patient referrals to corporate hospitals, and this can be comfortably termed as unethical behavior. Studies have indicated a significant prevalence of unnecessary medical interventions. There's a report which highlights that 44% of patients seeking second opinion were advised to undergo surgeries that were deemed unnecessary upon further valuations. And this has led to patients feeling exploited by unnecessary treatments. And overall, if you see, nationwide, it is developing a feeling of skepticism towards medical advice. So what is it leading to? Healthcare has become a business, not a service anymore. So if you look at from the patient's point of view, the plight of patients in India is heartbreaking, and it is reflecting of a system that has increasingly prioritized profit over human care. As human care has transformed from a compassionate service by a family doctor into a business, the most vulnerable in the society are being left behind. We know India, the government is feeding more than half the population with free ration. So all that section of society is left behind. Patient who cannot afford high cost of treatments or hold expensive insurance policies are pushed aside and their needs are ignored in favor of VIP patients who anyway will contribute to the hospital's financial bottom line. Now top it up with doctor-patient relationship, the trust which has eroded, and the patients with enough policies feeling still exploited and unheard. From outside, the healthcare in India today has become a patient factory. This shift within this generation is unacceptable. That is what is coming to shock to this generation. The promise of healing and care has been replaced by focus of numbers, targets, profit margins, volumes of paperwork, test, retest, and moving around places to places, departments to departments. For those in lower income groups, the situation is even more dire. Essential treatments have become unattainable and many are left with no choice but to endure suffering without access to proper medical care. In such a system, it is the 90% of the vulnerable individuals of India who are paying the highest price, both in terms of health as well as human dignity. The Indian medical system has failed and all of us are caught in the middle like powerless against the dehumanizing forces of corporatized healthcare in India. But then the big picture doesn't stop here with the patients and the services. For the doctors, for the aspiring doctors, this shift of viewing healthcare as a service to treating it as a business also has dehumanized their profession. Hospitals may prioritize VIP patients and those with better insurance policies, but then this is sidelining ethical considerations in favor of financial goals. The doctors are observing this violation, emotional violations every day. Probably by now, they are desensitized under the pressure of performance. The doctors are enticed and unknowingly they are caught in this system. Imagine dedicating years of student life to pursue the noble profession of healing, only to find that they are reduced to a cog in a profit-driven machine. Doctors who were once seen as compassionate healers are now under the pressure to meet the corporate targets. And there are administrators in the hospitals. There are managers in the hospitals who are dictating the doctors. I would recommend a book called Healers or Predators: Healthcare Corruption in India. So that's a fantastic book and that will put the perspective, the macro and the micro level perspective of the healthcare in India, where the doctors are finding themselves torn between their ethical duty to provide the best care and the harsh realities that is being imposed by corporate-driven healthcare. There is an emotional conflict that can be seen in the medical community and the entire staff is helpless. There are voices, people do speak up, but then they are all bound by the constraint of the corporate system. And that system goes against the fundamental human aspect of the profession of medicine. Because of this conflict, there are adverse consequences. According to Maharashtra Medical Council, in 2019, there has been over 100 suicides among medical students in India in a single year because the aspiring students, due to the financial cost as well as the burden of competition, is causing mental health issues. And those in the profession, the doctor-patient relationship is crumbling under the weight of corporate policies. One can make a causal study here based on Medical Association's report of 2020, which said that more than 1,400 doctors in India have died by suicide in just 2 years between 2018 and 2020. Therefore, what I'm trying to say is that along with the patients, doctors deserve our sympathy, not just for their physical strain they endure, but for the emotional burden of working in a system that asks them to abandon the very principles they swore to uphold. It is an unfortunate situation in India. Dear friends, in the weeks to follow, we will talk about the other aspects of healthcare in India, only in the pursuit to explore the best way to make the medical profession as noble as it was again. The collective philanthropy which has eroded in the medical profession must be restored. With those thoughts, I leave you until next week. Keep sending your feedback, it is highly appreciated. Thank you and bye for now.
Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.